Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to House in the Car Super Series Tuesday. My name is Stephanie Milburn. I am your House in the Car chair, and today we'll be talking about appraisals. So I know appraisals are always a hot topic, and I am joined today with my co-host, Miss Erica Rawls.
Hello, hello. Happy to
Hey,
be.
hey.
Hey.
So, Erica, what is going on in Central PA? I know that appraisals are a big deal all across the United States. So, we are going to be talking to an appraiser today, and let's just talk about what's going on in our respective markets.
Yeah. So as it's the same thing that's happening here is probably happening in Texas. So we have low inventory and we're seeing escalation clauses of like 50,000 sometimes over the asking price, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. But the crazier part is we're seeing them appraise. So I'm interested to hear what the appraiser has to say about how this is the case, and should we even be concerned about the market crashing like we hear all the time? Like, oh, okay, these
Yes.
be sustained. So
And I'm hearing a lot of people like they're waiting, a lot of consumers like they're waiting. They're like, oh, it's gonna crash. I know it's gonna crash. But I submitted an offer last week for one of my clients, and I spoke to the listing agent prior to submitting the offer, and she let us know she was like, we're not even gonna accept any ridiculous offers that are 50,000 over. So I was actually excited about that. However, our offer still was not accepted. But it was good to know that uh, the seller was very reasonable as
that's
far as expectations with a multiple offer situation. So there were, several offers. My client did put in a strong, aggressive offer. However, it just was not accepted, but we're still pushing through.
yeah,
And we're moving forward, and lots of my buyers, I'm just letting them know, hey, this is what the market is like. Let's make sure that we are being mindful of putting in offers that are aggressive, and like it's no point in going out to look at a property if you don't already have that mindset, because you know that you have to come strong. Like, if you're feeling in your heart, hey, this is the one, then go ahead and make that offer like you really want it. So
yeah, that is so true. Well, that is enlightening that you had a listing agent that said no, we're not accepting any crazy offers, which made me think back to a time or an offer that one of our team members actually wrote, and they said that the listing agent basically said the same thing. You know what? We appreciate the offer; it was really strong. However, we know that this is probably not going to praise, so they didn't even accept the offer, which I was like, really? Because they don't.
right, because and that's what she said to me. She was like, we know that it's not going to appraise 50,000 over. It's now, realistically it may appraise 10 to 15, even maybe 20, but
Right.
50,000 over, they just were not going to accept it. And so we know what the market is like. However, in a different price point, their offers that they're doing 75,000 over, um and that's actually more acceptable in that price range, and that was in the $750,000 range. But and they were accepting offers, well over. And I can see the difference between a home that's listed at 235 and one that's listed at 700,000. So
That's true because typically in that price point, buyers are willing to come to make up that difference. So it's the lower price point I think people should be concerned about because one, do they have the cash to actually make up that difference? And more than likely they may not. So they're thinking, okay, well, yeah, we're not going to accept this because we're going to have to reduce our price to that amount. So I think our guest actually got here early. So yeah, I'm going to actually bring him in so we can continue the conversation. Let me see here.
awesome.
Yeah, let me see if I can get him assigned here. Did I do it? Oh, wait a second. Here we go. Hold on, Jim. Hi, Jim. Sorry, I did not mean to bring you by yourself. Let me see if I can do this again. Let me see here. add myself, and I'm going to add Stephanie.
Our
Got us
super
all,
producer,
yeah,
Erica.
all right. I got us all up, but we're going to make this work.
All right.
Yeah, keep talking while I change it, Stephanie. I'm going to change this up, our names and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Jim. Welcome to Super Series Tuesday.
Hello. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us. So we are talking all things appraisals, and the audience definitely wants to hear about the appraisal process and how do appraisers actually come to the number that they're valuing our homes that they're selling or that they're purchasing. So that is like really, really a hot topic right now.
It is all over the country.
Absolutely.
Now, Jim, I know that you're really nervous about talking about appraisals, but just act like it's just me and you on the phone all the time, okay?
Okay.
I actually have conversations all the time, Stephanie, and he has a lot of knowledge. So just let's just do it that way, okay? So one of the questions I actually have, if it's okay with you, Stephanie, is now compared to different markets that we have from previous years, okay? Like how many
Mhm.
appraisals are you seeing? Are you actually doing on a daily basis? Like what's your average that you do on a daily basis that you're seeing?
I do 2 a day.
That's not bad.
No, you and to do a proper job, you really it's hard to do more because if you get hung up on one, your workflow slows down tremendously.
It's interesting that you say that, Jim,
Yeah.
because I was present for an appraisal appointment, and I mean, literally, the appraiser was there like I, I'm not even gonna say a whole 15 minutes. So I was like, "Oh, that's it? You're done?"
And the home inspection is the easiest part of the whole process.
Okay.
I'm typically there 15 minutes to a half hour, and I'm gone. Um, all work takes place at.
So you're saying you went out there for a minute, Jim. So you're saying that it takes you about 15 to 30 minutes to actually do a home inspection of the home. So then what
Yes,
the
we call it a viewing
okay, the viewing. Okay.
so that it's not misleading because we're really not inspecting anything.
Right.
We're just looking at what the home presents itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then from that, so the bulk of your work is when you get home and you're doing your research.
Right.
And
So and just to clarify something else, I said I do 2 a week. I am a one man shop. I don't have somebody doing data input or anything like that. So I do everything from receiving the order to sending the report back to the lender. Some offices might be able to do 20 in a day, but they may have 3 or 4 people doing data entry and setting up the files and what have you. Um, in today's world with electronics, it's so much easier. When I started in the business 17 years ago, everything was done by hand. You wrote everything on a piece of paper. You made all your drawings on a piece of paper, and then you came back to the office, sat down at the computer, and redid it in a software. Today, I use a tablet. So when I'm done at the house making all the notes, I upload it to a cloud. When I get back to the office, I download it onto my desktop from the cloud, and everything that I did at the home is right there in front of me.
wow. Okay. So that's what takes up most of your time. Yeah, yeah. Just going through that process.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Jim,
So,
are you seeing
and
a
then once
lot
the
of no, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask you, are you seeing a lot of homes that are, I would say maybe well above, the appraisal value? So, some people have been complaining about appraisals coming in really low, but are you seeing where they're just, ridiculously overpriced, or, what's going on?
I have one right now that is $100,000 over what I can come up with as value. The contract price is a
Wow.
hundred thousand more, and we're talking on a $350,000 home.
Wow.
Most of the purchases today have a contract over the list price. Um, and there's not a real percentage. I've had a number of agents say you have to offer 10,000 more than the list price, or you're not even going to get looked at. I don't
Right.
know if that holds true across the board, but it does pose a problem when
Yeah.
the appraiser has to come in. Um, I don't get too concerned with the amount over the list price. If I can get there, good. If I can get to the list price, I think I did my job because that's two real estate professionals saying that's what it's worth.
Yeah. And Stephanie, I actually spoke to Jim a couple days ago and he brought that point up. So I'm glad he brought it up again. He's just worried, not I should say worried, but his goal is to make sure that we gets to the actual list price. So one of the questions I didn't ask while when we talked last was, so what do you think of those colleagues that one of their strategies is they'll change that price in the MLS once it goes under contract to the new price? Like I've seen that a couple of times. So what do you think about that?
I don't concern myself with that
Okay.
because I'm looking at history. In the MLS, it'll tell you when it went on the market, what price, when the prices were reduced or increased, and I have a copy of the contract if it's a purchase. So I know what that list price was when the contract was written, and that's where I start from.
Okay. Okay. Well, to your point, Stephanie, then you're like, hey, you know, she was sharing with us before you got on, Jim, that there was a listing agent that was like, I'm not taking this over 50,000 because I know it's not going to praise. So,
Yeah, and that to me, that's more responsible. And so they didn't want us, like in Texas, what we have to do is send an appraisal addendum if we are going to want to back out of the contract if it does not appraise, or if the buyer is not willing to pay any extra. So, and a lot of times the agents and the sellers are not accepting offers that have these addendums attached.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing more and more addendums where the buyer and seller agree that if it doesn't appraise, the buyer will pay X amount of dollars cash. If it is more than that in difference, then the buyer has to reduce the price.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. And it's just really it's tough out here for the buyers because they are in these multiple offer situations. So, Jim, you were saying you weren't sure if it was across the board, if you have to come with at least 10 to, 15 over, but it really is that type of market across the board.
Mhm.
yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
So then I guess my question would be because of these prices going up and appraisers, well, I'll just take you for example. You're looking just to do the best interest of your profession and just to get the value that that it where it's most competitive or the value is, even though they're coming in at the $50,000 over. So what happens when you have to be getting, and maybe you don't, but you have to be getting some type of pushback from the sellers? Have you experienced that? Like, are you getting a lot of agreements from sellers or listing agents because of those escalation clauses?
Very little,
Really?
very little. And my argument is it's not my job to hit a contract price. It is my job to
I love
determine a value.
it. Right, right,
And the value is the market value. Just because somebody wants to come in and pay more than 50 grand over the list, I don't get concerned.
right. Stephanie, I was laughing because he's so matter of fact about it. He's like, no.
No, yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I'm usually like that as well. I'm not. I mean, it's just it is what it is. So, I get it. I've had situations where, yeah, I want to contact the appraiser because I'm like, you know what? But it wasn't that we listed the home 50,000 over, but I just felt in some instances the appraisal came in really low, even though I will provide comps in the area just so they can be in line with what's going on in the market. The appraiser can take a look at it, and most times I don't have any issues, but there are a handful of times where yeah, I'm having a problem where, the appraisal is coming in low, even with, I've done my research. I know you have to do your research, but, I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna work together, but it don't happen like that all the time.
In this type of market, the best indicator of value are home sales within the last 90 days.
Oh, wow.
So
Well,
if
and
you
you're right, Tim. I don't even send like if it's more than 90, I was sending comparables that were happening like within the last 30 days.
okay,
Because I'm like, hey, this one
Really?
just sold. Yeah, I would look at something, I'm like, oh, good. I get excited because I'm like, oh, this one just sold in May, so I can send this one. This one was just a week ago.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking to see
right,
what the sold date is because I'm like, if something sold over the list price that they had, I'm like, okay, I'm good with mine because it's gonna sell over, or the appraisal will see these comps and they'll understand, okay, you know what, hey, this is where this market is going, so the appraisal value may increase or it's just going to stay the same, or be at list. If it's at list price, we're good.
yeah, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's kind of where I come in at. If I'm at list price, we're good. If I can get it above, I try, but I don't beat my head against the wall trying to make it because now you're chasing value,
Right.
and it's not the job of the appraiser.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I like to geek out when it comes to value. So I had to clarify. So when we're assisting with the seller, you're recommending that we look first in 90 days now. Like we should look in
Yeah.
the first 90 days to make sure that we get that value or even less, if it makes sense, if we're able to find a good population.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm excited about that because I actually was arguing with someone and I said that. And then, of course, I'm thinking, dang it. I started second guessing myself. I'm like, no, this got to be right. And of course, I didn't call you, but thank you for that confirmation. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
When you start getting beyond 90 days in today's market, now you have home values going up.
Yeah.
Now you have to figure out how much did they go up
Mm,
in the 120 or 120 days or 6 months or the past year. Well, every neighborhood is going to be different.
Right, right.
You might have one neighborhood that values only went up 3%, and the neighborhood right next to it went up 4.5%. And then if you don't have comps all in a small group, you have to kind of figure out in each one of those comp areas how much did values go up. You
So
might have
let's talk about some things that will add value. So a lot of sellers have questions about what type of repairs that they should do when they're getting ready to list their property, what, is not going to make sense. What type of, things will add value for our sellers when they're listing their properties?
oh, you want something on a short term, or are you talking long term updates to get to a maybe a year down the road? Kitchens and baths play probably the biggest part in value,
Mm-hmm.
as far as being up to date. Um, Beyond that, it's square footage driving. Here in my market, it's square footage that drives the value, and then land, the condition of the home, whether it's updated, not updated, and then it becomes kind of convoluted at that point, just because every home has a bunch of little different things that maybe hurt the value or help the value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
I have a client that, a lot of her upgrades were really tailored to her own personal aesthetics and, personality. And so she really felt like her home was going to be valued at a lot more, which we did list it at the price that she wanted, and, it appraised at that. But, I think she really wanted to list it way more than that based on how she felt. And a lot of times people put their personal feelings into their upgrades, and they want that money back, but it doesn't work out that way.
one of the things that I always tell potential sellers, or if I'm doing a private appraisal, a countertop is a countertop. It doesn't matter whether it is laminate or granite. It's a countertop. Now the question is, what condition is it in?
Mm.
Laminates wear out. Granite, I haven't seen a granite countertop yet wear out.
Okay.
But a laminate countertop may have cuts on it, or just worn, um, because they do a lot of cooking in one particular area. Um,
But Jim, my countertops are from Morocco. What do you talk about? It's not worth a lot of money.
it's still a countertop.
I,
And I hear I hear you, because I get a lot of, well, that's Italian marble flooring. If I lay down dowel tile next to it, and they make the same shiny, glossy tile, the next guy that walks in isn't going to know which one is Italian and which one is dowel tile. And dowel tile is a manufacturer. Um,
Mhm.
so tile is tile. There's ceramic tile. There's a couple different styles of tile. One's more expensive than the other, but it's still tile. So then
So
it really becomes condition that you're looking at.
and we're talking.
what about features that are added to um, the outside of the home, like maybe a pool, because I have someone that's questioning whether or not they should add a pool and how much value that would add to their home.
Now, pools are regional,
Yeah.
okay? In Texas, oh yeah, I'm sure every other house has a pool. In Wisconsin, I'm sure every other house doesn't have a pool. In Pennsylvania, um, they're becoming more popular. Do they really add value? No, not here, because it's not something that people must have.
Hmm.
It's people would like to have, and if they can find a house that they can afford with a pool, yeah, it goes with it. You notice how I said that? Find a house that they can afford with a pool. And that's the way you have to take it when you come across a property like that. The pool lends very little value.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good way because we did talk to an appraiser here in Texas, and I believe he said that it would only bring maybe like 8,000 in value when people are spending 40, 50, 60, upwards of 70,000 to add certain pools to their home, and the value doesn't meet the cost.
It, value does not meet cost. The highest I have ever adjusted a pool for is $25,000, and that was on a $1.2 million home, and the people had receipts where the pool cost them the pool and its surrounding cost them $175,000 to put in, and they got $25,000 in value.
So that's a terrible investment, is what you're telling me. You're doing it
Yes.
for
Well, it's a terrible investment. It's also very costly to have a pool. It's labor intensive. It's got chemicals, unless you're using a saltwater pool. They're a little less, but you still have chemicals that you have to put in them. You still have to maintain them. And that means every spring, spending a couple $100 to open it, every fall, spending money to close it. Pools are very expensive.
Does adding any smart technology or energy efficient technology to the home add any value?
good question, Steph.
Now, in Pennsylvania, again, that's kind of a regional thing. In Pennsylvania, um, solar
Hmm.
doesn't bring any value, but yet maybe in Arizona it does, or in Texas it does.
Right.
Um, so solar is just regional type adjustments. Electronics, no, they don't bring you. If you put in a whole house system for electronics, doesn't bring any value.
Hmm.
Mm.
Only because we don't have enough homes around here that are set up that way. So it's just hard to figure out what kind of value it brings.
Right.
And it's not something that people walk in the front door asking. Does it have permanent Wi-Fi?
Hmm.
We just aren't there yet.
It's coming.
It's coming, but then I'm not sure that it's still going to have a value, because fireplaces, just to give you an example, at one time we could say a fireplace brought value to a home. Today, very few homes are built without one. So what value does it really bring now?
Unless
Because
you're in
everybody,
Texas.
Right.
unless you're in Texas,
I'm
and people in Texas a couple months ago wished they had a fireplace.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But it's just it's one of those where more and more I'm seeing fireplaces not adjusted for because everybody has them. It just comes with the house. Electronics, I think, is going to be the same thing. We're going to get to a point where everybody has it, and the house that doesn't have it maybe will be less in value because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be something that you can really put a value on. Um, that's almost like having chrome plated faucets versus gold plated faucets. It's so minute and so defined that it's hard to figure out how to put a value on it. Because and when you start going down that road, then you have to say, okay, hardwood floors cost more than carpets. Um, then we're going to have to start measuring every room that has hardwood floors and every room that has carpet and try and figure out the difference in square footage, and then make an adjustment. It would end up taking an appraiser 6 months to do the appraisal, and when he was done, he'd have to start over because the value is no longer any good.
Yeah.
So at some point, if you get too defined, it becomes a real problem because the appraiser can't figure out what that value really is or what it brings to the house. So, like I said when we started, it's GLA, it's land, it's condition, number of garages, number of bathrooms, a finished or unfinished basement. Um, those are the big triggers through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, would you suggest a seller have an appraisal done before they put their home on the market?
Typically, yes. If they're trying to sell it themselves, if they're going to sell it through a realtor, anybody that calls me, I say, let the realtor do my job for free because that's what they do. You would be surprised at the number of referrals I get just because I say that. And I tell them, look, I'll take your money. I'll take your money, but a real estate agent can do the same thing I'm going to do, and they're not going to charge you.
Right.
If they're selling it on their own, typically I would say yes, you probably should have an appraisal. In today's market, when I get a call, I tell them, nah, don't spend your money. Put it on the market, what you think it's worth, and the buyers are going to tell you what it's worth. If you're too low, you're going to have 100 guys walking through the door. Everybody's going to offer you $1,000 more, and at some point, you're going to say, "Okay, I got enough," and you're going to write a contract. I can come in and tell you it's worth $100,000. You're going to put it on the market for 100,000. You might get 125.
Right.
You just spent money that the market told you what it was worth. I was way off.
Yeah.
And people appreciate
Yeah. That was really good.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, you and I, we talk often because I think it's important for any professional realtor to understand how to explain values to their client. Yeah, you'll appraise it. However, I want to make sure when I'm have their house in the market that when it's being appraised, there's not going to be any issues with appraisals. And if I feel as though I'm going to have an issue, I'm always calling Jim. Like I have a bat line to Jim. Like I always do. I just want to make sure that we do the best that we possibly can. So and you see he's so free willing to give information. Um,
I will help anybody because the better you are at understanding the appraisal business and what we have to go through in the parameters that we have to work within, the better you are at setting up a list price.
Right.
There are producers out there who don't want to talk to anybody, um, and I don't know why, but that to me is just they're making their job harder.
Yeah.
Um, if I have an appraisal where I'm not coming in at contract price, I pick up the phone and call the listing agent. Am I supposed to? No, not really, because we're not supposed to be talking value.
Right.
But I just call and say, hey, I'm struggling. What did you use to come up with the value? Let them give me some comps. Let them sell me on their list price. Most of the time they fail. And they fail even in sending comps.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I said that was going to be my question. I was going to ask, how does that go? I mean, do they do a good job with, selling these comps? I mean, how does this work? Because I need to know for future reference.
When you're sending in comps where an appraisal is already done, one, don't just send comps because the appraiser's probably already looked at it. But if you're sending it by mail, write a note on there why you think this comp is better than what he used. Or send them and say, look, I'd like to discuss these. I'll call you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because sometimes just somebody else feeding my brain that's half fried um, says, oh, yeah, maybe I can kind of move those numbers around or I can do things here that make sense. And that the report is still going to be believable to the reader. And that's what an appraisal report is. It's a believable report saying the house is worth this amount. If there are a bunch of errors in there, well, all of a sudden now it's not believable. The report's really no good.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the more information that you can supply to the appraiser to have him look at or her look at um, the comps that you have and why you think they're better, um, the better chance you have. Keep them close in proximity to your subject. Um, that always, when you start going further away than the comps that he's already had, now you're not staying within the neighborhood or within that particular market. Now you've lost your credibility just by going out and only picking the high ones.
Got it.
And when you're picking comps, make sure that when you look at the adjustments that are going to have to be done, that there aren't a lot of adjustments and that they're all positive or most of them are positive. I get so many agents that will send me comps. Excuse me. The sale price is 200,000. They're sending me comps at 175,000. What's wrong with that picture before I even look at them?
Right. Right.
And they're not only sending me one, they're sending me three when I got to get to 200. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that
Just
doesn't make sense.
right. Um, and remember that appraisers, lenders require appraisers to bracket line items. So let's say use the 200,000. They want a comparable that sold for below 200, one for above 200, one right around 200. And then for the square footage, let's say it's 200 square feet, they want one below in square footage, one above in square footage, one right around. So you go down through the list, the land, they want one with more land, one with less land, one with similar land. And that really makes sense because now you're adjusting one lower, one higher, and when you, it's surprising, or it's amazing how when you do that, the top one, the one that's bigger comes down, the one that's smaller goes up, and there's your number. And it makes it easier for the appraiser, uh, especially if you're going to ask him to look, and I say him, but I mean her too. Um, it makes it easier for them to listen to you because you have one above, one below, one right on, and he knows that you understand his process.
Hmm.
I typically use 1 mile as the radius. Would I mean if I have to go over, I may do like 1.5 miles, but I try to stay within 1 mile
Right,
because, like you said, if you start going 2, 3 miles out, you're not even in the same neighborhood.
right. In suburban markets, lenders like 1 mile or less.
Mm-hmm.
In rural markets, 5 miles or less. In city markets or urban markets, they want 5 blocks.
Mm.
Not a half a mile, 5 blocks.
5 blocks.
Okay. I've always used
Yeah.
a mile. Okay.
If well, half a mile, 5 blocks,
Is that is that about right? Okay.
you're probably a little far at a half mile, but you're close enough.
Okay.
Um, the appraiser can go over those limits, but really have to explain why,
Mhm.
especially if there are sales within the 1 mile or 5 miles. Um, in a suburban market, sometimes I have to go a mile and a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say, look, this is a better comparable than this other sale or other sales that were in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I usually don't have a problem. If the lender has a problem, they'll be sending it back to the appraiser saying, find another comparable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Stephanie, you get to experience what I lived through. I never talked in less than 45 minutes. Never. Ever. I'm telling you, don't get sucked in.
Well, listen, I feel like Jim has provided us with a lot of information, and we are glad to have you on our Super Series Tuesday show to discuss what the home is worth. So, a lot of our audience and listeners, they're wanting to know, how the value is determined, and you have provided us with a wealth of information. So, thank you so much, Jim. And I know that, I'm out here in Texas. It's a little bit different. It's different in Central PA, but we have listeners that are all over the United States. So it's good to know what's going on in different markets because we have people that are listening from all over. We have people that are relocating. We have clients that are sending us referrals. So we have to be knowledgeable of what's going on in other markets as well. So we have a lot of our, HTTC ambassadors that are listening. So everyone is getting a lot of information from our Super Series Tuesday show. So thank you so much, Jim, for joining us and sharing your knowledge today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you for saying yes. We'll definitely have to bring you back because that was really good.
Well, I'll
Erica,
come
do we
back.
have any audience questions?
No, we do not. I was looking. We do not have any audience questions. We may get someone to replay because you did a really good job. I'm just grateful that we got confirmation that look, 90 days is what we need to be looking at as far as values, maybe even 30 if the if the population of houses suggests so. So thank you for that. Sellers, do you hear me? Do you 90 days? We're not looking out 6 months to a year. 90 days active market.
Yeah,
At.
yeah,
And
and
the,
Go ahead,
the
Jim.
yeah, when
appraisal process, uh, no matter where you are in the country, is the same.
Yeah.
Everybody, all appraisers follow the same guidelines. They change a little bit, maybe from lender to lender. Um, Probably the biggest change is how much you adjust for differences. In California, those differences might be 10 times what they are in Minnesota, or double what they are in Texas or Florida. But the process is the same all the way across the country. It's just some things are adjusted for in certain markets where they're not in other markets. A pool, solar panels, um, just things that are regional, um, are going to be adjusted for in some markets where other markets they're not.
Yeah.
well, guys, this has been another amazing Super Series Tuesday episode, and we're on episode 5. So we have taken you guys through the home buying process from start to finish. We're not done yet, so we are at the appraisal point. So we have a few more steps in this home buying process, so that we want to get you through and to show you each step, each process, and how this works in all markets. So stay tuned for our Super Series Tuesday episodes. We'll be back next month. And Erica, do you have anything you want to add?
No, this was great. I learned a lot, but I always geek out when it comes to home valuation. So again, thank you, Jim, and thank you for everyone that was watching. We hope you really enjoyed it. And if you have any comments or questions, just because it's you're watching the replay does not mean we won't get back to you. So just simply type in your question. I have a direct line to Mr. Young. So if I don't know the answer, or if Stephanie doesn't know the answer, we will definitely get you the right answer. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. And thank you, Stephanie. I always love co hosting with you.
I love it too. Thank you so much, Erica. And next Tuesday, we will be back with Home Ownership Changed My Life. So that's always one of our favorite shows as well. So we'll be celebrating home ownership. It's a big deal. We want to normalize this celebration all over the country. So please, please, everybody. So, you know what? I haven't done this yet, but I like the idea of rolling out the red carpet, having
Yeah.
cameras at the closing. So it is a big deal. So we want everyone to get excited about home ownership. Thank you so much, Jim, for joining us today. And we hope that you'll join us again and provide some information to our audience members. And we appreciate you and we thank you. So, audience, thank you so much for tuning in to Super Series Tuesday. We'll see you guys again next week.